Whatever happened to signature moves? Those mid-match maneuvers that really work to pop the crowd, but at the same time, simultaneously showcasing a wrestler's personality. These used to be the bread and butter of any professional wrestler, especially on a big stage. However, nowadays, we just don't see them around anymore, at least not in the way we used to. And I'm wondering why. And that's exactly why is the subject of this episode, because today... Okay, so when I'm talking about the signature, I'm talking about a very specific kind of maneuver, one that has a lot of varying criteria to it. For today's discussion, when we're talking about a signature move, we're distinctly talking about moves that aren't finishers. Moves that aren't supposed to end a bout in any way, shape, or form, and we're not talking about alternate finishers either. We're distinctly talking about those little gems that pop the crowd but are never supposed to get a 3 count. And sure, some classic signatures have been upgraded to finisher moves, or have been used as accents, going on to the end of a sequence, right before a 1, 2, 3. And that's all well and good, as long as once upon a time they were a signature move proper. And to be clear, we're not just talking about moves that hardcore fans can recognize from a wrestler's arsenal, like Triple H's Spinebuster or his high knee, but rather, I'm talking about highly anticipated moves that the fans are just waiting to see. Oh, and by the way, you're not counting former finishers. Sure, nobody's expecting Cesaro to pick up a win with the sharpshooter, and it does pop the crowd, but nevertheless, we're not counting it. Why not? Well, another bit of criteria is in the word signature. Just like in its written form, a signature should be fairly unique to an individual. As long before the days when you had to click on fire hydrants to prove that you were a human, a person's autograph used to be a great way to leave your mark. And as such, a signature move should be very similar, almost like a calling card, if you will. And I'll even go as far as saying that while finishers can be copied and repeated, it's more important to me that a signature stands on its own. And going on from that, using someone else's signature or someone else's finisher as your signature really defeats the purpose, especially because some would consider it cheating to use a move that you already know is over in order to try and get yourself over. Alright, now despite all that specification, this really is just a rough outline, as there are plenty of caveats to this ruling and there are a lot of exceptions that we have to make. For example, Stone Cold Steve Austin's Lou Thesz press is obviously named after Lou Thesz, so it's not exactly like it's an original. And as much as it pains me to see the DDT no longer acting as a finisher, at the same time, it's pretty hard to deny Randy Orton's second rope version as not being a signature move. And on the same note, if we look at the Three Amigos, we should remember that Harley Race used a vertical suplex to win his first ever NWA World title. But if we go that far back, as well as going even further back for the Lou Thesz press, we should just admit that in some cases, moves just kinda age out. And even if we are counting those, we're still at a severe lack of signatures anyway. But how and why exactly did this all happen? Now, one suspected reason that some have for saying so long to the signature is perhaps a lack of creativity. However, I have to be convoluted. It can just be a very simple move done with some theatrics. Nobody needs to reinvent the wrestling wheel. You really just gotta put your personality into it. After all, a signature is supposed to highlight who you are. That's what makes it so great. Not everything has to be Rolling Thunder, as a second rope elbow or even stomping a mud hole is perfectly adequate. Now, having said all that, I think the most recent example of a move that we've seen that really does fit this bill is LA Knight's elbow. Now, it isn't great, but he does have some fan interaction and they do cheer his name. However, unlike the People's Elbow, no lucky fan gets a souvenir. And it doesn't quite have as much in the way of theatrics as the Rock's move did, meaning it's also not showcasing as much of LA Knight's personality as it should. And so, while the crowd does chant along with it, it's not like anybody goes to a show just hoping that he does the elbow. And even if they did, that's fine for LA Knight, but what about the rest of the roster? As back during the Attitude Era, a lot of lower tier wrestlers had signature moves that the crowd popped for. So why isn't it that way today? If it's not a case of a lack of creativity, then what could it be? Patreon shout out to the amazing supporters that keep this channel going, such as Dakari Garment, who once forged a signature. Literally, he cast it out of hot molten metal and everything. Mr. J, who once had an E signature. Again, literally, it was just a letter E. Ron Hawthorne, whose signature move is writing his own name on your forehead. Mangy Stray, whose name was written by John Hancock himself. And Harry Flynn, who has no trademark because he's no mark. And to the rest of the Patreons, thank you so much for keeping me going. As far as that's what keeps them distinct from finishers. But unfortunately today, finishers don't finish bouts, thus taking some of the special out of the signature. And yet another issue, now this isn't going to be another old man rant complaining about flips, but it's going to be another old man rant complaining about flips nowadays. And it's not just an AEW thing, but also in the WWE at least once a show, and in a lot of cases, it seems like it happens in almost every match. Somebody jumps to the outside. Even celebrities do it now. And so while I, like a lot of people, are extremely bored of topes, for whatever reason this still pops a live crowd, and so the midpoint outside dive is yet something else that has taken the role of the signature, being the highlight of the halfway point of a match. But unlike a unique signature, this is something that everybody does, from guys as small as Orange Cassidy to guys as big as Drew McIntyre. If you need to wake up the crowd, just do a dive. It's easy, everybody else does it. However, even if you are a fan of jumping to the outside, you have to admit there is a lack of fan interaction that goes along with that particular move. Once again, going back to the Attitude Era, there were plenty of occasions for fans to sing along with the match. For example, any fan from those days could easily answer the question, "What does everybody want?" Or when the Godfather asked everyone to come aboard the, well, you know. The point is, there was a lot of anticipation. You knew what was coming next and you got to be a part of the show. And once little bits like this started going away from wrestling, fans started making some of it up just because they wanted to do it. For example, the following contest is scheduled for? That's right. But then WWE took that away from us too. But why would any company dependent on fan interaction ever want to do something like that? Well, I do have one possibility. As previously discussed on this channel, WWE, as well as the entertainment industry at large, has a problem with big, huge megastars. An individual like The Rock, who will just use WWE as a platform to springboard them off into Hollywood and find greater success, so much so that they can even buy into the company later on, isn't exactly what any company really wants. They want control over the individual, not the other way around. And so, as we saw under the Vince McMahon era, star power has a ceiling as far as corporate entities are concerned. They don't want anyone to be more over than the company itself, and therefore having a recognizable move that people just love and also showcases who you are as a personality may not be in the best interest for that of a major business, even if it is in the best interest of us fans. Well, there you go, a little bit of a call to action for the return of the signature maneuver. Let me know what you think we could do to fix the situation down in the comments, and also make sure that you share this video and you give it a big thumbs up. I want to say thank you for watching, and a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters out there. And as always, Dave knows.